Hello and welcome to Day 7 of the Sunshine Summit. My name is Heather and I am the host of Sunshine PowerCuts, a podcast which features two types of episodes that alternate. Sunshine ones offer inspiration drawn from nature, and in the PowerCut ones, I share insights into my life living off the power grid. Today is the finale day, a whole week of live streams that we've been doing, celebrating connections with incredible guests. We launched it off with Derek from Sometimes Geek and Rolling Misadventures. Then we had Rhett from the Braintrust Network, Wallfly Podcast and Cardinal Brandings and Designs. Then we finished day 1 with Anthony and Steph from the Off-Center Archers podcast. Day 2 saw it start with Adam Higgins from Odd Dad Out and Lo from Low Nose Media. Day 3 we had Elisa Lucas from Best Forevers, a podcast for kindred spirits. Day 4 we were so grateful to be joined by Susie Buttress of the Casual Birder podcast. Day 5 we had Logan Norgal from the Paper Robots podcast and Beard and Frog comic with Lisa and Sam, who is so funny, from I Shake My Head with Lisa and Sam. Yesterday, for day 6, we were joined by Luke from Luke Who's Talking. And today, kicking things off, we have the amazing, the illustrious Stargate Pioneer from Better Podcasting and the GonnaGeek Network. Hey, SP, how are you?
I'm doing great. It's great to be the warm-up act for the finale, you know, just to have some fun, to warm up the crowd, to get everybody ready for the main event tonight. So it's great. And it's great being back here on the Sunshine Summit. I can never say that right.
I'm sorry.
Sunshine Summit 2018 Mark II.
Mm-hmm.
And thank you very much for having me. It is an honor, Heather. You've done a great job so far.
Thank you. Thank you for being here during this week, also for the March Summit, because on day 1 of the March Summit, you helped me close out day 1, and it was incredible to have you and Stephen John Drew there, because you both have been incredible inspirations to me throughout this podcasting journey that I began in August 2017, and here we are a whole year later.
Happy anniversary or podversary of however you want to term it. It's been a year. That's great. Yay, you made it.
I did. And thank you for the other opportunities that I've had along the way. Like I joined you for International Podcasting Day on September 30th last year. Banjo and I did an unofficial live stream while you guys couldn't make it one time, which was a lot of fun. And then you joined me in March for the March Sunshine Summit. But not only that, I love catching Better Podcasting and the GonnaGeek Show live, because that's where I got a lot of inspiration to do these Sunshine Summits from. So thank you so much.
Oh, well, thank you very much for watching. I mean, we put it together because we are passionate podcasters for better podcasting. And we just wanted to share that great knowledge because we knew that a lot of people would need that knowledge to do great things like you're doing right here. And then all of your guests too. It's just been a phenomenal week with a lot of high quality hobby or independent talent. So it's been really eye-opening watching a lot of these videos. And if you haven't watched the previous videos, go back to Heather's YouTube channel and see all of them. It has been an amazing week of live streams.
It has. I'm very grateful for everyone who participated as guests, but also everyone who's come by live. And we've got a bit of a party happening in the live chat at the moment. So a huge hi and welcome to Tim, Talako, Luke, Banjo, Ali. Yeah, it's awesome to see you there. So thank you so much for coming by. We had a lot of people pop by during the week, and that was a lot of fun. But the other ones are there to catch up on if you missed them live. When we were connecting back in March, you also joined me on my podcast, just going to that. Sorry, you joined me for a PowerCut episode and we had a chat about liveaboard sailing, which was quite exciting.
We did, and I'm still investigating that. I actually was just talking about that today.
Yeah. I think that it's this hobby podcasting thing has been amazing for connecting with a whole bunch of different people, but also learning from yourself, because you are incredibly supportive. You radiate your passion for podcasting pretty much everywhere you go. You're on a whole heap of platforms. I don't know how you keep up with it all, but you are incredibly supportive of the hobby podcast. You have a wealth of knowledge to share, and I really appreciate that. And it's been amazing connecting with you and the support that you've given me over the past year. And some of those platforms are like Reddit, and you're in the Discord servers and all sorts of places. So if you wanted to talk a little bit about some of the places that you are, that would be amazing.
Yeah, you can always find me on Twitter at Stargate Pioneer. Also, my shows are on there too, at GonnaGeek. That's both the show and the network, and at Better Pod for better podcasting. I am on Reddit. Once again, that is u/Stargate Pioneer. And I'm in a lot of Discords as well, probably not all of them that are podcast related. And I'm in a few Slack groups and channels that are podcast related as well. So if you're in the podcast about podcasting sphere, odds are you will run into me everywhere but Facebook. I'm not on the Facebook. The Facebook has booted Stargate Pioneer off, and Stargate Pioneer has no interest getting back there. Although I am on Instagram, which is owned by Facebook. So I'm wondering when I'm going to get kicked off there as well.
I love following your Instagram. You have incredible pictures, and some of them you've shared of like your lake house and stuff. But there's also, you've connected with something else which is kind of technical, which is a drone. And we talked a little bit about that at some point, I think, or you and I have talked about it. But your drone is really amazing for capturing things, and sharing those videos are just impressive.
Really, I just started flying drones this year. I'm new into it. It's taken a couple of years to get to this point where drones are really accessible, usable, and stable enough that your average person can go out and fly it and get some amazing video and pictures. Now, I've gone to some actual drone flying classes. I'm in my certification to get commercial license. It's called a Part 107. It's part of the FAA flying license and certificates. And I'm striving to get the Part 107 so that I could do some commercial photography and videography work. But it is just fun to do. It can get expensive when you get to the higher end, even just the hobby ones that are $1,000 or $2,000. But the real big commercial birds that you might see footage on from the TV shows you watch, the movies, those are like $4,000, or they could be helicopter shots too. Yeah. But more and more of those shots are going to those commercial drone shots that are about $4,000. So it's just an exciting time to get into it, and an exciting time for me. It's like, if you are into hobby photography, that's kind of what I'm doing with the drones. They're used on a variety of different sensing platforms now. You can use them for construction, surveying, and the like. You have to be an actual surveyor to call it a survey, by the way. So if you're not a surveyor, which it takes some education and training and certification, then you can't just call it a survey. But you can use it to take the images that are needed to do that. So there's a variety of different things that are going on with drones right now, and it's an exciting time to get into it. And if you're 16 or older in the United States, I can't speak for other countries, but if you're 16 and older, you can go out, get your own drone, get your own certificate, and you can have your own business up and running. This is an exciting time to be in the drone community.
That's awesome. But it's also been connecting you with nature, because you've been out taking really cool pictures and videos of nature. So some of those I've had the opportunity to see. So thank you for sharing them with me.
It's my pleasure. Whenever I get one that's worth sharing, I send it out. I'm still learning. Both now I've been an amateur photographer for quite some time, so I get the shutter speeds and the film speeds, the ISOs. I get all that, but just the frame up and flying the aircraft while you're trying to take the picture or the video, it takes some getting used to. Matter of fact, a lot of these drones are actually dual use, where you can have one person flying them, one person controlling the camera. I don't do that, but some other people do. And yes, it is fun to get out to nature and take those amazing shots. Or even in the city, you know, you get out and experience life. Getting in the city, the one thing you can't do, you're not supposed to do, is fly it over crowds of people. So you can't get in the middle of a big street party or whatever and fly the drone right over you. That is technically illegal.
Yeah. That's fair enough. I mean, there's got to be privacy and permission and stuff for that kind of thing to happen. But we did get a couple of questions come in, if we can skip to those. And Bandrew asked, do you have any advice for juggling a stressful full-time job, multiple podcasts, and well-being? And I know that you and Stephen John Drew just did a recent episode on well-being, which was really good. And I highly recommend everyone go and check that one out.
Yeah, we thought it was a good idea to step back and talk about personal health and podcasting, because a lot of people, they'll be sedentary, or they'll sit down, however you want to say it. My mouth is not correctly working today. And they'll just sit for hours and hours and hours, either podcasting or doing research or watching TV shows or something in preparation for the podcast. And then they'll sit down for hours and hours and edit and publish and then promote. And it's not really an active, healthy lifestyle. So we just wanted to make sure that people stayed healthy, especially coming into the fall and the winter here in the North America, the Northern Hemisphere, and just make sure people stayed healthy as we went through those flu and cold seasons as well. So yeah. Bandrew's question though is any advice. So I had on Better Podcasting episode number 50, I went through 15, what I would call the golden rules of hobby podcasting. One of which was just to do 2 shows, no more than 2 shows a week. If you get sucked into doing multiple shows, you're going to find yourself really stressed out, because there's really not a lot of time to do everything that you need to do with each show. Matter of fact, even 2 shows a week, it can be a little bit strenuous if you're doing everything correctly. The way that I'm able to do my 4 shows a week that I'm doing right now is I have an amazing supporting cast. I'm not the only one doing everything, and the work is distributed to everybody. If you are a solo content creator, I would advocate that you take a look at how much time that you're spending on whatever you're creating. And if you're spending too much time creating and not enough time for yourself, it's time to actually pull back a little bit. Mm-hmm. We also, just this week, it hasn't been released yet, but we did an episode about holistic podcast organization. So you have to be organized if you're going to actually produce quality content on a continual basis. So I would say those would be the basis of actually being able to create the content on a continual basis.
Yeah. I think that that's really important. There's organization, and there's working out what your boundaries are and what your limitations are, or how much time you do have and energy you can put into it, and what your support network is going to look like in order to be able to do that. And the running thing has been like, do as SP says, not as he does, probably only until you can get those things in place. Because, I know that there are people who are multi-creative and have lots of different projects that they take on, but it's making that sustainable and having those things in place to help keep that sustainable.
Yeah, and you have to take time for yourself as well. If time for yourself is on the weekend, spending time with friends, going out and experiencing culture, movies, or entertainment in some way or shape, form, whatever, sporting events, if you're into that, then you have to take time for that. And then that is time away from your content creation. You still have to pay bills. You still have to do laundry. You still have to clean your house. You still have to make your meals. You still have to go grocery shopping. All that stuff still has to be done. So you have to take care of your basic needs. You have to take care of your well-being mentally and get the entertainment and downtime that you need. Everybody's different there. And you need to experience events or life or whatever it is that you're creating content about. So all of that has to happen outside what you're doing to create the content, to organize the content, to record the content, to push the content out, and in whatever form it is. Could be paintings, could be a YouTube video, could be Twitch streaming, it could be a podcast. So, whatever it is, you need to take the time to make sure you're getting all of that correct in your entire life.
I wholeheartedly agree. And that's kind of what I focus on with the Sunshine episodes, is making sure you connect with what lights you up, but also looking after yourself and then getting out there and exploring nature. So it's not just the one track of the content creation and that's all. I just want to skip back a little bit, because you did briefly mention that you have these other projects that you are a part of, and you've got a great cast that help you with them. So would you be able to tell us a little bit more about your other podcasts that you do?
So the 4 podcasts that I do right now, we talked about 2 of them already. Better Podcasting, it was one. The GonnaGeek.com show is another one that I do with Stephen and Chris on a continual basis. And we have guests in, or people come in and replace us when we're out on vacation or travel or something like that. So those are 2 of them. The other 2 are the ones that I produce. It's called Legends of S.H.I.E.L.D., which is a podcast on the Marvel Cinematic Universe and specifically about Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., but we're delving into other TV shows as well. And then the Starling Tribune, which is on the CW DC Comics based Arrow show right now, and the entire what's called the hashtag Arrowverse. We've been schooled on that, by the way. We used to call it a lot of different things, but the entire fan base schooled us. Like not only the fan base of our show, but the fan base of all of the shows on the CW, and said, no, it's called hashtag Arrowverse. We're like, fine, we'll call it hashtag Arrowverse. So you're talking about Arrow, you're talking about Legends of Tomorrow, you're talking about The Flash, all those shows. Supergirl is one of them. So that is Starling Tribune. And the other one is Legends of S.H.I.E.L.D. GonnaGeek.com show, by the way, is a weekly like tech and geek show that we talk about anything that's tech related, technology related. I talk about space stuff on there, which is the tech version of what I do, because space is a passion of mine. And and by space, we're talking about outer space, not like your space, your closet space or anything like that. And then Better Podcasting is a podcast that's dedicated to the hobby podcaster. So the people that not necessarily doing it for money and are doing it for the fun of it or just getting their projects off the ground. I think there's a lot of business related advice out there that might not make sense for people as they're starting out, or they're solely doing it for fun. So that's why we started Better Podcasting.
Yeah, I love it. And it was recommended to me as a resource to check out when I began. And I'm so glad that it was, because it has been invaluable. And I know that Luke from Luke Who's Talking, who's in the chat, also recently launched and has gone through and now caught up on all of the back episodes of Better Podcasting, which is awesome.
I've done that for podcasts before. That's a momentous task. And I can't believe you listened to that many hours of me and Steven bickering back and forth.
The banter between you guys is incredible. It's quite entertaining, but also, like I said, you have the wealth of knowledge to share, and you always seem to bring up topics that are on point or timely, or that are just going to be valuable for later on down the track too, when people do come across them. And Tim has asked in the chat, what's the most important thing or things, in your opinion, that you need to know prior to starting a podcast?
The most important thing that you need to know prior to starting a podcast is just what is your topic? What is the generality of the subject matter that you're going to be covering? That is really important to know. We just talked about podcast organization in the latest episode, which hasn't been released yet. And in that episode, we went a little bit further and we said that you need to have maybe a vision statement. You need to have content planned out a little bit. You don't have to have every show planned out, but you have to make sure that you have enough topics that you're able to go 7, 10, 20 podcasts and then take it from there of where you want to go. Because when you're just starting out, you're not getting that interface with your eventual listener base. So you don't necessarily know what they're going to ask you to cover and what is important. And for us, we cover a subject matter that is changing a little bit all the time. Yeah. And so we keep an eye on those changes and what they mean to the podcast industry and specifically to hobby podcasts. So that is important too, to take into account whatever events are changing. That even applies to Legends of S.H.I.E.L.D. and Starling Tribune, which are entertainment-based podcasts. We take into account any news items that are going on, any changes with the shows themselves, any actor changes, any changes in the general storyline, or where they want to go in the future. Like with Starling Tribune, we don't really cover the DC movie universe as our primary coverage, but we keep tabs on it, and it is separate from the TV universe. And that is constantly changing because they just haven't got it right yet. So they're constantly re-evolving and re-evaluating what they're doing with the movies. So you kind of have to look at how you want to cover that. Do you want to cover it from the movie base? You want to cover it from how is it going to affect the TV shows? Are you going to cover it from the comic series, which were recently rebooted with the DC Rebirth universe? So it just depends on what's going on and what you really want to cover, whether it's business, entertainment, or personal development. It just needs to be a topic that you can talk forever on, because you just might have to talk forever on it.
Yeah. And you clearly are passionate about that, but also passionate about the podcasting scene. And that's how you're probably interested in it. Well, you're doing it for a purpose to help people as well. So you're keeping abreast of what's happening so that you can share that and help other hobby podcasters, which is just amazing. And on that note, you are very active in a lot of communities, like I mentioned. So how would you suggest a new podcaster get involved in some of those communities without coming across as spammy?
So we're not just talking about podcasts about podcasting or that genre here. We're talking about whatever your topic is, whatever you're actually looking at. So I would find different areas where people go to, Facebook communities or groups, whether they're private, secret, or just the community page. Those are great to start with if you have a Facebook page. Not everybody does. And I'm not just talking about me, but okay, so that's one thing. There is some great groups available on Reddit, and Reddit's kind of good because you kind of have that searchable database, but a lot of people don't search it. You keep on seeing the same questions over and over and over again. And the same thing with Facebook. So I would go to those types of communities. I would interface with people. I would share your theories or your knowledge of the topic that you are interested in covering on your podcast. And then every once in a while, when it's relevant, you can say, oh, by the way, I talked about this on this episode, or this sounds exactly what you like. People on Reddit in the podcasting subreddit, I'm starting a new show. What do I need to know? The first 6 episodes of Better Podcasting were specifically designed with the new podcaster in mind. Go check those out. That sort of thing.
Yeah.
But I don't just do that. I also say, okay, I think the first thing that you need to discover is whatever topic you're doing. I go down a brief list, but then I say, you should check these out to get more information and ask me questions if you want to in the future. So then you come off as some sort of a knowledgeable authority figure. But if you are or not, it doesn't matter. Your content is out there speaking to that. And there's blogs out there that are central in some instances that you can get into the comment sections and banty back and forth on different things. I did that with Voices of Defiance, which is a podcast about the canceled Sci-Fi Defiance show. Once the show was canceled, it seems like the world didn't hear that the show was canceled. So one of the last shows we did, we actually interviewed the producer of the whole series. And when people were like wondering where the series would have gone from there, that is the only place that you can get that information for the Defiance universe is on our podcast, because he didn't give that information anywhere else.
Wow.
He was very generous and very forthcoming to us. There was also another podcast on the Continuum series that was also canceled roughly about the same time on the Sci-Fi Network. I did not have a show that covered that show, but I listened to that podcast on that show, and that producer did a very similar thing with their podcast. So it was just really nice to have that sort of thing going on. And you can find that sort of interaction with authority figures everywhere. I mean, if you want to interview, if you're doing a podcast about outer space, there's a couple of people that you might want to ping off of. Neil deGrasse Tyson, if you can get a hold of him, Pamela Gay from the I believe it's the Astronomers podcast, the different people that you can interview, and then you can get their takes on things, and then you can say that you've had them on your podcast. But that's a whole other thing. You have to make sure that your ducks in a row before you go interviewing somebody as famous as that.
Yeah, I think when you're going first into a new community, it probably pays to look at what their guidelines are for what the community is, so you can see how the rules work and what is going to be stepping on their toes, and follow the kind of rules. Maybe it is they have a thread particular for each day or a week or something where you can share links to your stuff, but then also like go through, and there's, in most places, I think like you were saying on Reddit, there's a search function. So you can use that to search topics that you're interested in or whatever, and go through and have a look at those and read them first and then comment, rather than sort of just spewing your stuff into a group. I mean, it's always nice to make an introduction. Welcome. Hi, I'm Heather from the Sunshine PowerCuts podcast. But when I tend to do it, I don't tend to drop links unless it says introduce yourself and then carry on a thread from there or whatever. So that's just my tip on that one.
Another great place that we've discovered lately has been this whole Discord server thing. Now, the problem with Discord servers is it's a chat function. Mm-hmm. So once it's like a text message, once you've chatted in about, I don't know, 5 minutes, people are, especially if it's very active, people are never going to go back and read it. So you have to focus what you're trying to do on the specific people that are there. And usually I go into Discords and I either have fun conversations, or if they're asking for advice on a variety of different issues, then I can give my advice, but then realize that there's a lot of other people with great advice too. So make sure that you give them the floor as well. And then that's a great place to actually develop a rapport, and because you're communicating constantly, so there's more of a rapport to be had on a faster level. But the ability for people to come in and search later is diminished because it goes by so fast. So it's a give and take. I used to say that on any social media platform, pick three and then stick to those three. And those three should be where you're at normally anyway.
Yeah.
So if you are on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter, those should be the three. And those would be where you'd want to actually focus your energy. If you wanted to do Facebook, Instagram, and Discord, those would be three. I would try that out. Maybe you're somebody that can do 4 to 6. Maybe you're just really active online and you can do that. Well, that's great. Maybe you're somebody that can only really pay attention to one, and you discover that over time. What you want to get away from is if you have your brand, whatever that brand is, on a social media, you don't want it to look dead. You want it to look engaging and inviting to newcomers and people that follow you as well. So if you're not going to be in a certain place, you might want to think about closing that down, or at least say, hey, if you're looking for me, you can find me over on this platform over there. Don't spam either. Don't send out, like if you're on Twitter, don't send out 50 tweets every day trying to promote your stuff. That's just not cool, in my opinion. Yes, you can send an automated tweet, 2, maybe 3 a day, but still over time, if somebody's coming into your account and they're looking at recycled tweets over time and they're just seeing a bunch of spam, they're not going to follow you. And that's not what you want. You want to build a community of followers wherever you're at and whatever you're doing. If you're selling something or you're just trying to build a community of like-minded people, you want to increase your followership, and you're not going to do that if you look spammy. So stay away from that.
Yeah. The things I got out of what you just said were that, like, Discord's a good place for building a community. The searchability of that is a little bit more challenging. When you go into other places, perhaps use that search function to go back. I know that recently I was looking for an LED light. So on the Tech and Gear channel in the Podcastage Discord server, I did look up to see if anyone had mentioned that before. And then I found some links that maybe Dope Nest Monster had posted, which was cool. But then also when you are doing the social media thing, totally agree. Be where you are already active, because then it won't be so hard. It is a challenge to keeping up with doing all of the social media connection and engagement that you need to do there. Definitely don't make it spammy. I mean, you can tell when posts are automated. They don't have the same kind of flavor to them or feeling to them, although that's what you probably should try and put into them when you do create them and schedule them to go out in advance. But I follow a few Twitter accounts and I know that they're automated because they just pop up and they don't really seem to have that personalized feel to them the same. I have spammed my Twitter channel lately because I've got the Sunshine Summit event, so a lot of my posts have been related to that. But I've also tried to engage and retweet and comment on people who've commented and show that I am there following it and reading it. And I noticed that my main places, it used to be Facebook, not so much anymore, but Twitter and Instagram and my Discord server with my community, which is an awesome place to hang out. So yeah, don't spread yourself too thin, because keeping up with that is possibly going to be a nightmare, and you don't want to get burnt out just on that part.
No, I've got a little bit of pet peeve. I'm not as starstruck as some other people might be with actors. And if you get on some of their Instagram accounts, you just get a continual smiling, beautiful face, beautiful body shots, several a day, constantly. And honestly, these are people that I actually like. I like what they have to say. I like their skills. I like their performances. But when it comes to following them on something like Instagram, I'm like, oh, I am out, because I'm not gaining anything except for seeing your pearly whites or whatever skin you want to show with me. If you're a guy, go shirtless, or if you're a woman, the bikini shots seem to be big. I get tired of that over time, because I'm there, I guess, for the wrong reason. I'm there to see what's going on. I'm there for news. I'm there to see what's going to be going on in your future. And all I'm getting is your beautiful face or your beautiful body. And okay, there's only so much a 50-year-old guy can take of that. So I'm going to move on. I don't know if that's going to be true for all of your followers or your key demographic, but I have unfollowed several accounts that are like that recently. And it's not because I don't like them.
Yeah.
It's just because I get tired of trying to scroll through to what I really want to focus on. So you got to be careful of that too.
Yeah, you want to give value. You want to be seen to being given value and not just viewing stuff out there. I think people can resonate with that when it is something that you genuinely mean or that is helpful or useful or points them in the right direction or is an update, like you said, on where they're at. So yeah, if anyone has any questions for SP, do let us know. One of the other questions I had for you was,
what am I doing tonight? I'm on this podcast. I'm streaming. I'm opening up for Bandrew. We haven't mentioned actually who I'm opening up for. I'm opening up for Bandrew.
Well,
come by and see him at 9 p.m.
He is how I found you. So I am very grateful for that. And that's kind of been an amazing thing throughout this event. The last one is just that there's been interconnections between all of us. So there's been new connections made, which is also awesome, and amongst their audiences and communities too. And it was just an opportunity to all come together and celebrate, because those connections are really important. Like I said, my connection with you've helped me a lot. You've given me a lot of advice and support and encouragement. And I've remembered what I was going to ask you is, you like to do other things and connect with people in other places, like doing voiceovers and stuff, and you like guesting on other shows as well. So if you'd like to share a few little stories from there, that would be awesome.
Well, lately I've been very fortunate in that a new podcast really about the Ready Player One universe called The Basement. They've asked me to be on a couple of episodes, and it's been really fun because it's all about really 80s nostalgia when it comes down to it. And yeah, I was going to postgraduate school in the 80s, so late 80s. So I lived through it, and it's really cool going back and reminiscing. Matter of fact, one of the things that I'm still doing based off the last episode that I did is I've been watching through the entire The Greatest American Hero show, which is on an app called Con TV, which I didn't know what con meant for a while. It's convention, like San Diego Comic Con and stuff like that. So that's what the con stands for. It's like the convention TV. So it's meant for fans, really. And so they've got all 3 seasons of The Greatest American Hero. I'm just about 5 episodes left to watch that. So that's been fun. But it's really been fun talking about everything with Albert Padilla and whatever other guests he happens to have on over on the Basement podcast. So that's been pretty fun. It's been pretty fun to do this. And yeah, I'm always available for voiceover. So if you have a podcast, you have a YouTube channel or whatever else, maybe an audiobook, and you need a male voiceover, go ahead and hit me up. I will do it. And I've yet to charge anybody. I've actually been paid, so I can consider myself a professional, but that was not the agreement going in. My agreement was very different. But he's like, no, dude, I need to pay you. You absolutely need to be paid for this. I'm like, fine. I got paid in Bitcoin. It was my first Bitcoin that I owned too. So that was pretty fun.
Wow.
But it's always fun making these connections and doing things. But if you have a need for a voiceover, I've done voiceovers for Emily Prokop on her Story Behind podcast before. I've done intros to podcasts. I've done voices for different things. I've done a few voices for audio dramas. So if you have any voiceover needs and you need my male voice or a voice that sounds like me, I'll do my best to get you what you need as soon as possible. And I think that's why I keep on getting work, is because when people ask me to do stuff, within a day, they've got the file.
That's impressive. And you do such a good job, and you can hear your passion for it, and you really get in character, which is awesome. On that note, I just want to do a quick shout out to Josh Liston from the On the Bubble podcast, who's a part of the GonnaGeek network, because he called out and asked if I would give him a voiceover clip for one of his latest episode that he released, which was a lot of fun. It was about Lucifer, and I got to read out some tweets from Leslie Ann Brandt, who sounds quite South African as well as New Zealand. So I was just a little bit tricky to get her accent down, but it was a lot of fun participating in that. And I also got to do the voiceover for the GonnaGeek official show Christmas special, which was so much fun. I absolutely loved doing that one.
Stephen is a great scripter, a great storyteller, and we worked together to figure out who should do what parts. And it came time for the voiceover. I'm like, dude, we need to get Heather. And he's like, at the same time saying, we're going to get Heather. So that was not a big deal. So we're very grateful that you said, okay, to do that. And it was very fun. We try to do a Christmas special every year. So we'll see if we actually pull one up this year or not, or what Stephen really has store for an idea. We actually have like 3 other ideas that we haven't pulled off yet. So we're looking forward to that. And Josh, listen, I've also done a voiceover for Josh's stuff, and his podcast is very intriguing to me because it's taking a real critical look at shows that are canceled and the fan base behind them and what the fans are doing to either bring the content back or bring the show back. And sometimes they're succeeding, but oftentimes they don't. And he just takes a good look at how that is evolving over time. I think it's really amazing what he's doing. I don't think anybody else is actually focusing in on that. Everybody talks about how an IP gets canceled when it does, if they're doing a general entertainment show or they're doing a show specifically on that, like with Defiance. We did it with Voices of Defiance when that got canceled, but nobody's taking a look at it from show to show to show to show, or IP to IP to IP to IP like Josh is. So if you want to take a look at how fan campaigns have either succeeded or not, I would definitely check out his show on the Bubble Podcast. It's great. And I did the voiceover for him before we even conceived that he'd be interested in coming on the GonnaGeek network. So that's pretty cool.
That is cool. On the theme of the network, Derek from Sometimes Geek asked, for anyone that's looking into starting an independent network, what resources would you recommend?
Anybody's looking to start a network, what resources would they recommend? Well, if you're going to start a network, you're going to have a central place for that. So I would definitely get the domain, the URL, the whatever it is, .com. I would, or whatever you choose it to be. I would get that, and I would start a website. Now we're transitioning GonnaGeek to second line themes, which is a great theme that's very versatile with podcasts or any other content that's being created. So I would advocate paying for that theme. Yes, it is a paid theme, but I would definitely go with that. If you're trying to do a network off of a free theme, you're going to run into a lot of troubles later. So that's the web part of it. The other thing is you're going to have to define what are the bounds of your network. Going back to the topic like we were discussing before on the podcast itself, what is the generalities of the network? What's the theme of the network that you're putting together? Because you don't necessarily want to have a knitting podcast next to a fantasy football league podcast on the same network, unless they're related some way. Maybe it's a Christian podcast or religious-based podcast network that has all sorts of wholesome content there. Maybe you do it with a bunch of porn stars, and that's your MO for your network. Or maybe like with GonnaGeek, you're just a bunch of geeks. Whatever the thing is, I've heard of women business related networks that are starting to pop up, which is so cool. I'm glad that women are coming into the space in the droves that they are. It started a few years ago. It used to be male. Podcasting wasn't exclusively male, but it used to be male dominated. That is not the case anymore. And so you get things like women-based networks that are starting to pop up. And I applaud all of that. So, whatever the theme is of your network, decide on what you want to do that. Do you want to foot the bill out of your own pocket, or do you want to have some monetary exchange from the podcast to you, or to you to the podcast? Like if you want to get a bunch of advertisers together and think that you can actually sustain the entire network off of ad buys, you can try that. I would argue that would probably not be a good idea at first, unless you're getting together a really professional network with a bunch of shows that have 20 to 50,000 downloads per episode. You're probably thinking in terms like a hobbyist network like GonnaGeek.com is. So I would really talk about what is the revenue sharing going to be, who's going to be responsible to pay for what, just like you would on a podcast with co-hosts. I would come to those agreements, because at the end of the day, if it comes time for that annual web hosting bill and it's like $500 and you don't have the cash on hand, I think the people that are part of the network might want to pony up for that. We're lucky on GonnaGeek in that we actually don't pay anything to be on the network. Steven takes care of that. But we also don't share any revenue back and forth. So any revenue that's created by the individual IPs are the IPs owners themselves. And it's just a collaborative network that goes back and forth. And you have to decide on what, if you want to do that, if you just want to be mutual promotion or whatever. And this could be, I talking in terms of podcasting, but it could be in terms of YouTube or Twitch channels or something that really you're just bringing content together in a singular place. And that's really what a network is, no matter what venue you're actually producing it on.
Yeah. And then when you're thinking about, so not only having the unifying theme of what your network is to kind of help you, but the onboarding process of how you attract people, I guess, to come to the network, but how you like process them, because you have an application process for the GonnaGeek network.
We do. It's a whole process, but it starts if somebody's interested in, they go to GonnaGeek.com/join and they fill out a application, and that application goes to a committee and or the people that run the network, which is really Steven, but he's asked for some help with that. So we take a look at it, and then is actually a review process, and we've got the review process down. We bring in different people for different shows. It's not just the main people on the committee. It's other people that have agreed to review shows. And we like doing that. And they're all part of the network. And we like doing that because we like hearing different voices from different parts of the network. We want to make sure there's diversity of thought going on. So about 4 to 6 people take a look at the podcast. They look at all the nuts and bolts, the actual technological background of the podcast, the content of the podcast, the hosts, on-air personalities, their microphone presence. We take a look at everything, as well as their social media and how they're promoting, how they're presenting themselves. And would we want to be associated with a show like that? And also we take a look at the show, and we think in terms of the show, they might just be thinking that they need to be part of a network and they apply, when really they're either better off alone or they're better off with another network. So we really want to make sure it's a good fit back and forth. And if they're not right for our network and we know of a network that they are right for, we will tell them that too. Awesome. We've done that in the past. Yeah. So that's a whole process. It takes a couple of months. It's not just an application. You take a quick look, a 5-second listen, you go, yep, I want that show on the network. It's actually a deliberate thought process that goes back and forth. So if you do apply, if you're listening to this and you do apply to the GonnaGeek.com network, we have received your application and we were actively looking at it, and it's just got to take a while. In some cases, people listen to 20, 30 different shows, and you got 6 people, 4 to 6 people that are actually reviewing it. That takes some time in and of itself. And you're talking about busy people that are having fun, working full time, and producing their own content. So sliding in that time to listen to those shows and to actually evaluate the shows, it does take some time. So please be patient. And we apologize for the wait, but we're just trying to do the best thing for everybody involved.
I think that's really important, though, putting that thought process behind it, because you could technically probably start up a network straight away, get a couple of buddies, and there you go, you've got a network. But essentially, if you want to make it sustainable and down the line and bring on the shows that fit with that theme that you've decided on, you kind of have to look at how it's all going to work and fit together, and how you're going to review things and things like that.
Yeah, the review process took a couple of years to get down to the finely tuned and oiled machine that it is, which we're still learning, but it's a lot better than it used to be. And we've got some templates in our review process where we've got some specific things that we're looking for or not looking for in the process. And if you're a good enough show and we either know you or the people that are doing the initial triage listen to it and it's like, oh my gosh, we need you on the network, we will just forego the months and months and we will get back to you right away and say, yeah, we want you on the network. The other thing that we've done recently is we've had an onboarding process, which I'm not sure a lot of other networks actually do. I know some do that monetize because there's a lot of information that they have to exchange back and forth, but I don't know if a lot of hobby networks do this. To onboard somebody is to create that connection back and forth with them. And it's not just a faceless name or signature on an email that you're going back and forth. We want to create that community. That's a big part about GonnaGeek. We want it to be a community of podcasters that could share back and forth everything that they need, whether it's a co-host or a guest host that they need on short notice, or maybe it's a topic that they don't know anything about and they want to bring on an expert or somebody that's more of an expert than them, or whether it is getting together at a convention or maybe having a meetup on their own. You know, these are all things that it takes a community to get involved in. We try to do that and be a community. Heck, even on, like, since we're all podcasters, since GonnaGeek is a podcasting network, if there's like a sale on a
Yeah.
key piece of podcasting gear, we do share that back and forth with everybody and say, hey, if you're looking to upgrade, or if you want to sound a little bit better, if you want to look a little bit better, maybe you need a better computer. This is a deal going on. If you have the money, it would be a good investment for you to grab this now. So all of that community support, that's what the network is. And the onboarding process is just the start of making those relationships long term.
Yeah. And that's been a process. So it's been a journey, and you've come a long way and built it up since back when it started. So, I mean, for anyone looking to do it, take some steps, look into other examples like GonnaGeek, but other ones as well, and see what they're doing and find what works for you, and maybe get a support group that around you that can help with their experience. So maybe come along and interact in places where you can draw on information and experience from other people. Just before we get into the last kind of segment of this guest spot with you, SP, does anyone else have any other questions from the live chat for him?
You mentioned having a podcast support group. We call it a pod buddy on Better Podcasting, but again, it doesn't matter what you are doing in terms of content creation. Having that, and you were talking about it last Sunshine Summit 2018 Part 1 about having accountability partners. That's important to have because, hey, we're all human and we all like to slack off and be lazy, or we all can't critique ourselves as well as others can. So having that accountability partner, pod buddy, we call on Better Podcasting, is paramount to making sure that you can continue to improve. And it doesn't have to be a drastic improvement, but if you do a bunch of little improvements over years, it adds up to big improvements.
Thank you for being my pod buddy.
Oh, yeah. Well, thanks for being my pod buddy, too. It's great. Gosh, I just can't get enough of that New Zealand accent. It's just, it draws me in. It's just great. So if anything else, Heather, that's always contributes to my joy every day.
You're welcome, SP. Luke from Luke Who's Talking said, would SP be open to offering feedback on a pod independently of the GonnaGeek network? If someone was to
do that on a case-by-case basis. Yeah, I do that on a case-by-case basis. I've done it for different people. Matter of fact, there's some good what are now some good friends of mine that came to me. They actually took over a podcast and they were wondering, so I have not podcasted before and we have this big audience. I don't want to screw it up. Can you please give me some critiques? And yeah, I'll give you some critiques. So I was able to give them some critiques over time. They knew that I was kind of busy at the time, but I did take time to listen. And as I was listening, I gave some feedback back to them every day. So a lot of consultants will actually do this for a fee. And just to let you know, and the fee can range from $50 for a quickie to hundreds of dollars for a good review of your show. So just be aware of what you're asking. If you go out and ask other people, it is a significant amount of expertise and time that the individual is devoting into you if they say okay. So just be aware of that. And yes, on a case-by-case basis, I am more than willing to get that in. If I start to get too many, I might say, well, maybe you need to look towards a paid consultant, or tell you what, I'm kind of busy right now. I'll get to it eventually, but listen to these episodes of Better Podcasting that will help you out. And then I'll take a look at your show after you've done that and made some changes or something like that. So yes, for now, I'm kind of open in terms of reviewing podcasts. So go ahead and let me know, and I'll tell you what I think. I think even Bandrew, you'll have to ask him next hour, but I think he'll even do that for YouTube channels too. So that's pretty cool to have both of that available in the circle of Heather.
Gonna derail me, SP. No, I just wanted to say that people can send in questions to the Better Podcasting podcast, right? So they can ask questions there. And then you also have the segment about how you saved your podcast to share your journey to actually help other people as well. Another one, I just want to mention that Rhett Hall is a network owner that he developed himself. So he said, if he can do it, you can do it. And Andrew asked, do you have one piece of advice you'd offer to help folks develop stronger connections online?
Be authentic. Don't be a used car salesman. I mean, really actually be personable to people online, because it's going to take you a little bit longer to build that relationship overline. Even if you're on a video chat like Heather and I am right now, it takes some time. Like Heather and I weren't best buds right away. It took some time to get from the time she showed up in our chat room to the time that we were actually talking and exchanging content creation. So the one thing that I would say is be authentic, be genuine, and don't pester whoever you're looking at. If you're a guy, don't be stalking.
Yeah.
So actually, it doesn't matter if you're a guy or not. Don't be stalking online.
That's right.
Yeah, remember to give people their space, but yet be genuine and ask questions. And the more authentic you can be, the better. I mean, I've been on Reddit, and there's been some real winners over there that say that, well, I'm not arguing with you, but, and then they continue to pose back and forth with you for a while, and you know they're just looking for a trolling fight or something like that, and you just gotta politely back away and say, hey, look, this is what I recommend via Better Podcasting or GonnaGeek or whatever, based on my experience and based on these hundreds of hours that I've recorded, and good content otherwise, but it's not the only way. There are other ways to do it. You might be talking about something else, and this is how I would recommend. So have fun continuing to recreate. I thank you for your recommendations, and we'll be seeing you around. And just politely bow out. That's the only way. You'll never win an argument online. You'll never win a screaming match online. So the best thing to do is just be genuine, but bow out gracefully, and then move on to the next thing.
Yeah, I wholeheartedly agree that you should be authentic. I think that is essential for anything. And the other thing is like sharing your value as well, and not just kind of demanding of other people, because like being supportive is a way of beginning a relationship in a good way, and then eventually maybe down the track you can ask for advice or something without, I mean, sure, you might have a specific question that you might need help with or whatever at the time, but then kind of not let it leave it be a one-way street, kind of give something back as well.
Yeah, I'll give you a further example. Through my podcast, I've actually become friends with some actors, and I mean like actual friends. I'm not going to say who it is because we keep our communications behind the scene, and I don't want to inundate them with anything, or me in being inundated with something to get to them. But I created that relationship by being authentic with them. And it's kind of funny me saying being authentic with a username like Stargate Pioneer. Once people get past that, they realize that I'm the same guy that I would be with another name. It doesn't matter. And that I'm not a stalker. And I truly have some good intentions with my talks back and forth. So you can befriend some really neat people. They don't have to be actors. They could be scientists. They could be innovators in your industry. They could be really fun people just to be around. And you can create those relationships, those connections by being authentic over time. Now, is everybody gonna shine up to you? No, but some people will. So just be authentic, and you'll find the people that like you.
Yeah. I want to say a huge thank you to everyone who has been here today, because I don't know, I think I did something right. There's a whole bunch of people that wanted to be part of the Sunshine Summit and then come along and support it live. So a huge thank you to each and every one of you. Luke asked if you're Brad Pitt, and then Rhett said, this is the second time I've heard SP talk and I have a question. Will you adopt me?
Well, as soon as I get my last kid out of the house, I'll have some available rooms here that you can come on in. But for now, we're full up. But eventually, there will be some openings in the SP household.
Bandrew from the Bandrew Says podcast has popped in the chat. He said, I've become friends with SP and he's the leader of SNASA, and I appreciate that connection and friendship.
SNASA appreciates you too, Bandrew. We've made some excellent USB condenser microphone choices because of your podcasting channel.
I'm just laughing at the chat. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's great. I really appreciate you. This is something about live streaming. You can get really engaged chats and really fun chats. And we do on Better Podcasting on a week-to-week basis. And I've been in some other shows that have tremendous stuff as well. If you do a live show and you've got a great live chat, it's probably good to have somebody come in and moderate so that you can pay attention to what's going on. But also it's great to be able to pull some key statements or questions from the chat into your live stream as well. And it just makes it, again, more personable. You're connecting with the people back and forth, and you're creating a bigger community for your content. So I'm by no means a business entrepreneur with producing content, but I do realize it's one of the stepping stones in order to get there. And I want to thank everybody that's in the chat right now, because you're making me laugh too.
It is. It's a great way to engage and get rapport with them and make them feel a part of it too, because it is important to recognize that they are out there. Even if when you have an audio podcast, you've got people who are listening, and not all of the time do you get to interact with them. So I love catching the Better Podcasting and GonnaGeek recordings live. Not only do I find it valuable seeing the behind the scenes of how you do that production, but also just being able to be in the chat with the other people watching, and then ask questions or throw in a few things that you pick up during the episode, which is amazing.
The eldest bro asked a question that I want to answer here. He's asked, what was your favorite and worst podcast that you have worked on? Honestly, my favorite one, even though all of my podcasts are really fun to be on, my favorite one is Better Podcasting. It's just because it's a passion of mine, and I really like the subject matter. And it's really why I podcast, because I like actually teaching other people about podcasting. And I fell in love with podcasting a long time ago with a show that is now pod faded. It's called Galactic or Galactica Water Cooler, about the Battlestar Galactic television show, the reboot that came out. And there was a podcast on that. I became friends with those people. And I actually had one of the hosts on that as my co-host for Voices of Defiance, which was really the first podcast that I individually started. So that was fun to come from. Now, the worst podcast that I ever worked on was as a guest. I did one episode. It's basically the version of three guys in their mom's basement with brewskis. And I say they're the worst, even though they kind of knew their stuff. They knew what was going on, but they were trying to present themselves as something that they weren't. After the show was off, and I won't say what show it is to protect the guilty here, but they claimed that they got 50,000 listeners per episode. And knowing what I know about the podcast sphere, I would have heard of that podcast if it had 50,000 listeners per episode, because the average download via Libsyn, Rob Walsh at Libsyn says the average amount of downloads is, well, the mean is 142. So 50% get up to, or the median it's 142 per episode. So 50% of shows get less than that. 50% of the shows get more than that. Yes, people do get tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands, or in the case of Hardcore History, millions of downloads per podcast, but those are few and far between. Mm-hmm. So I knew they were blowing smoke up my rear end. And then that just snowballed into making it a terrible experience. And that speaks to the genuine or authentic thing that we were talking about before. And that just ruined my relationship with them. And it wasn't like they said it like, oh, we don't know, like 50,000. They were pretty adamant. I have stats to show I have 50,000 downloads per episode. I'm like, why aren't you on the top of every sponsor's list? So I knew they were really lying to me, and that just ruined it for me. So that's why I say it's the worst podcast, because those people I would not want to associate with, because those are not the type of friends I want to hang out with. And they're definitely not the type of people I want to be in business with.
Yeah, that doesn't sound terribly good at all. So yeah, coming back to being authentic and making sure that you are genuine and who you say you are, and what the real facts are. Rhett asked, these are the friends that I let myself have. How does it feel? I'm not actually quite sure what you mean in a way, but for all of the connections that I've made, I've been genuine going into them, and I am incredibly grateful for each and every one of them. I know that people have a lot to offer, and it's been just blows my mind that I've been able to make the connections that I have in the last year of the podcast and everything. So thank you so much for being a part of my journey.
Yeah, well, thank you very much for having me. I feel honored to be part of this part 2 of the 2018 Sunshine Summit. And I also feel honored to be opening for the great Mr. Bandrew. He's a great guy. I listen to his podcast every week, whether he knows it or not. I watch all of his videos, whether he knows it or not. I think he does some incredible stuff. And I think you're going to be amazed at the next video, the next part of the Sunshine Summit. Heather, you have a great hour ahead of you.
Well, you've provided a lot of value too here, SP, so it was incredible that you were here and a part of it. So I really appreciate you coming by, because there's a lot that people can get out of listening to our chat. So don't undersell yourself. And Rhett just clarified that all of these goofballs is what he means.
Yeah,
And
that's what I thought. I was going to clarify that myself.
I wasn't sure. I'm sorry, but I'm a bit of a goofball too. So there we go.
Oh, no, you don't. Okay, I was asked to do a Kiwi accent to close out the show. I'm not going to do that. I was born in New York, and I can't even do a New York accent correctly. So, no, I'm not even going to attempt that because I would offend an entire nation, and it would cause some terrible international incident, and I'm not willing to go there tonight. But if I have some voice coaching, eventually I'll get there, but not tonight.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, SP. Thank you so much to everybody who came by the live chat. Luke wants someone to say a number that comes after 5.
Oh, yeah. Which would be 6.
But yeah, thank you so much, everybody. Thank you so much, SP. I am, like I said, truly grateful for this past year. That I wouldn't be here where I am without you, if I'm completely honest. So.
Well, this has been amazing. I mean, if this is the type of student that any guy could or any person could have in sort of class, this is amazing. This is more than I do. So this is you've outdone your teacher.
Thanks, SP. Alrighty, we're going to close it up now, but I will be back shortly, as SP said, with Andrew Scott for the finale of today, day 7 of the Sunshine and PowerCuts Sunshine Summit 2018. Thanks, everyone.
Bye.